It's almost 7 o'clock. It's Sunday evening here in India. On the other side of the world, America is now facing tough questions. There are 3 million Indian descent NRIs, American Indians living there. There are more than 1 lakh Indian students studying there. Over the developments that they've seen over the past 1 week, many are concerned tonight. Many who travel to the United States for business, many who seek H-1B visas, many of whom who go there and have family there, who are watching this broadcast tonight, have some genuine concerns. They've been highlighted by the individual on your screens. This is an incident that took place a few weeks ago of one of the most well-known Indian Americans who's been there for 30 years. The story of her and her husband inspired the movie of Shahrukh Khan, Swades. Some of you might have seen it. It narrates the story of a person, an intellect living in America, coming back home to build a village here in India. This lady, while walking outside her house, that's right, walking outside her house in Maryland, was picked up by the police after neighbors complained that she might be an illegal immigrant. She was then taken in unpolite ways, let me put that out, to the police station and was told that she was being investigated for criminal charges and was asked why she was not carrying an identity. She asked the question, was I reported as being brown? When the police asked her that a complaint had been filed by her neighbors. She's spoken out on American television for the first time. The Maryland police have put out an explanation. We're opening up this conversation because it's a conversation that must be had. We can't come up with conclusions, but we can certainly put out the discourse that needs to be undertaken, not just in this capital, not just in this country, but right across the globe. Listen in to the story of Aravinda Pillalamarri.
So one day, as I was taking my morning walk, I was stopped by the Bel Air Police and asked what I was doing. I replied that I was just walking. The officer asked where I lived. As I was only a short distance from my home, I pointed towards it. When he asked my name, I asked why I was being questioned, and he said that someone had called the police. Walking while brown, I asked. He said, no, nothing like that. Someone might have been concerned that I was lost. I asked for his card, which he gave me, and I reassured him that I was not lost. I also said, I respect that you are doing your duty, and we really appreciate the work the police department does. We hear about it at town meetings. I don't have a problem giving you my name, but I would like to know what my civil rights are in this situation. A supervisor arrived and asked me what was happening. I related what happened up to that point, reassured him that I was not lost, and asked if I was free to go. He said, no, because you are under criminal investigation. I was very surprised by this. I asked for his card. He said, after you show me your ID. As I had just come out for a walk, I had not carried my ID with me. Why don't you have ID, he asked. Are you here illegally? I again asked for his card. He said, after you give me your name. At this point, I gave my name and date of birth, and after they looked it up in their system, they allowed me to go. He did not give me his card, and I did not ask again.
They were trying to figure out why there was some hesitation to provide identification. That's why they asked. That's why he asked if she was illegal. That's an education for me. That's helped me out to see that, hey, not only do I have to get my officers trained, I have to get the dispatchers trained on how to react to some kind of situation like that in the future.
Narrated there by Aravinda Pillalamarri. This is what's happening right now, where we've just got breaking by Aravinda Pillalamarri. This is what's happening right now, where we've just got breaking information coming in from the United States. For those of you who have been tracking developments, this is Donald Trump who just spoken out, and of course he says, vetting, and I quote, our country needs strong borders and extreme vetting now. He's of course said that the ban on refugees, interim ban, if I can put it, that he's put out on the seven countries is working very nicely. That happened, of course, a few hours ago. A lot of reactions are coming in on this. Before I open up this conversation to your calls and the guests joining us tonight from here in India, let's quickly listen in, if we can, to what Majid Memon of the NCP has been saying to us. We've gotten reactions from the left parties as well as the ruling party, as well as a lot of Indian Americans. Let's open up and listen to those reactions. Then I invite Ambassador Shahrukh Mukherjee and Swasni Haider from The Hindu to open up this conversation and to your calls. Let's listen in to the reactions.
It is difficult to give any judgment for or against Trump right away, but the manner in which he has begun, it shows that he is trying to assert himself, no matter whether he is right or wrong, but he is toning in a very authoritative manner. And more particularly now when he stops the entry of various people from different sections of the world, has been objected to in a big loud chorus, and he should not generalize anything if he really wants to do well.
Whatever America does today will have a universal reaction which they do not understand. If Trump's policies are going to be very, very unfavorable for India also, and more than that, it is a humanitarian issue also, because for many reasons people are to leave their countries and they are to seek asylum. So if America, one of the most developed countries in the world, if they say that we will not admit refugees, that too on religious basis, religious grounds, then it is most unfortunate. It is a shame, it is a disgrace on the America's democratic credentials and track record.
Once he has become president of US, he has started taking his position forward, moving aggressively towards more and more right wing, and the stopping of migrants from 7 Muslim countries, and talking about against Mexico, and there are many things which are going to emerge, and we will have to wait and see.
I think he has already realized that Indians are an asset in America, and there may be an odd mistake here and there among the ignorance. Police still pick her up now. Some ignorant American who's fed on this fact that every brown skin or dark skin or bearded chap is a terrorist. He probably thought that she was a suspicious person. So I don't think we should take it too seriously. Not as far as Indians are concerned.
Okay, let's open up this conversation. Swasni Haider with me, Shahrukh Mukherjee also with me in the studio. Swasni Haider, let me begin with you, ma'am. Now, what our viewers are watching on their screens is two visuals. One that happened in February 2015, when a Sikh gentleman was assaulted by cops. He was flipped over and hospitalized. What we are seeing on the right side of your screens is what's happened with Aravinda just a few weeks ago after Trump was elected as the President of the United States. Racial profiling, ma'am, by police in America is not new. Having anti-race feelings in countries across the world fueled by a kind of hate are not new. But for many Indians who have family there, Swasni Haider, who live there, who travel there, who are worried about H-1B visas, worried about what's happening to immigrants, what do we tell them tonight?
Well, certainly it is a cause for worry. I don't agree with the gentleman who just said that really Indians will not be touched by this. It will be only these 6 countries that have been put on a visa ban that will be affected. Because just to put it briefly, I think there are 3 reasons why Indians should be concerned and should equip themselves with more information. The first is certainly that when there is a kind of profiling, that when immigration officials are empowered to get tough, as it were, with people from various countries, Indians should expect that there is already a racial bias against what we call brown skins, which may affect them as well. We've just heard today of an Indian businessman who's been arrested in North Dakota,
yes.
Apparently for threatening airport officials, and he's in a correctional facility. So you're going to see a tightening of all kinds of, immigration officials are going to feel more empowered to take on people they may see as a threat purely because of the way they look. And it won't matter whether they have an Indian passport or any other. The second is a general bias against immigration, which you're seeing in terms of concerns over H-1B visas, the possibility of the Trump administration deporting people, of saying that they really don't want more engineers, that they don't want people to be hired from other countries. And remember, India is the largest, has the largest share of H-1B nominated immigrant visas. Close to, I think, 60 to 70% of H-1B visas are issued to Indians. And the third part, I think, that India does certainly need to worry about is the idea, as you said, of Indian Americans inside the U.S. and those who have relatives over here in some way being targeted. Although that is, right now, as you yourself said, that may be a larger problem and not something that Indians here can worry about. But certainly, as we have seen in the case of this Indian businessman who has been arrested, it is necessary to counsel citizens that there is going to be more stringency in America. There may be more arbitrary actions being taken by law enforcement officials, and therefore they have to be more careful.
So be careful. If you get asked the double questions at the immigration line, it's not the first time it's going to happen. But if you're asked that, just be careful, because talking back too much is going to land you in all sorts of trouble. That's the practical advice. Let's look at the slightly larger question. Ambassador Shivshankar Mukherjee.
Absolutely, and anyone who says it's about religion or about Muslims from a certain country, I think they don't realize that for the average American, they really don't
like it or not, we are all the same.
Shades of gray. They literally see it all the same.
Yeah, and to put it bluntly, we are all the same. Ambassador Shivshankar Mukherjee, I'm trying to find a silver lining here, if there is one, because the world will have to churn its way around. It's a democratic election. The Americans have voted in a president who has strong views. They knew what they were voting for when they voted him. That's none of our business. What is happening to Indians in America, families of Indians living here who are settled there, who are green card holders, who are H-1B holders, who are just being profiled, some because who wear a turban. What's the silver lining here? Is there any?
I doubt it. You just said that it's none of our business. I think it's actually everybody's business around the world, because American policies, whether it's in trade or economic relations or their attitudes towards people at large, immigration and so on, does affect the world as the world's mightiest economy and superpower. And globalization has, of course, made it even more intense. I don't see any silver lining. As far as I'm concerned, and to mince no words, what has always been a racist society has now become even more emboldened.
At least the elements within it.
Well, yes. And Donald Trump has made it very clear that candidate Trump, President Trump is not different from candidate Trump. At least in the first 7 working days of his presidency, he's made that abundantly clear. So all those who were innately racist, xenophobic, rednecks, or whatever, the constituency that is the core support of President Trump, now feel much more emboldened to not keep these things hidden, but to actually become emboldened.
Okay, and this includes people both inside the establishment and outside the establishment,
including those at the immigration desks.
Yeah, those at the immigration desk, yes. Those inside law enforcement who feel that less questions will be asked, despite the fact that a lot of people come out and speak out in the public domain. Our first caller joining us tonight, inviting more views from India. Let's open up the discourse in this country. Anand Dixit from Gwalior, have your say, sir.
Yes. I only want to say it is arrogance on our part that we should not be investigated. We should not be asked any question by the arrogance on our part that we should not be investigated. We should not be asked any question by the competent authority in any country or our country. That's arrogance, total arrogance. That their point, they want to make some defensive and security measures. You cannot stop it.
A contrarian view coming from Anil Dixit, fair enough, that if people are asking questions, just because you think you're being racially profiled doesn't mean you don't have to answer them. Ambassador Shiv-Shankar Mukherjee, before I go back to Suhasini Haider, is there a case to say that India should now look to be the new land of hope?
Well, if you're talking of the ground realities, the fact is we don't have the problem or the luxury of talented immigrants coming into India. The point is that the immigration flood is towards the Western nations, especially towards America. So that is the situation on the ground. And what you were discussing about what this will do for, I mean, you specifically raised the question of the Indian community. I think the Indian community will basically be affected in the same way. Suhasini was right. The man at the desk, the immigration official,
doesn't know the difference.
He is going to be, you know, if he is going to follow the executive directions of the U.S. government in letter and spirit, he is going to be tougher than he, as it is, you know, and given the fact that any country has the right to control immigration, to control the influx of people into its borders, choose whom it wants to let in and who it does not want to let in. Given that, the fact is that the recent executive decision and its very selective approach is, of course,
okay.
You know, it gives the game away. Okay, you have these 7 Muslim majority nations,
yeah, so
but you don't have Saudi Arabia, you don't have Pakistan for various political reasons.
Yes, so just on the broader question, so Suhasini Haider, if I just take a contrarian point of view, should we perhaps consider that if more of these extremely talented, extremely well-educated Indians get to stay back here and work here, perhaps think of becoming entrepreneurs back home, perhaps it's not such a bad thing for us. We can be the new land of the free and home of the brave.
Certainly, if you want to take the position that those who are going abroad can actually be employed in India, certainly you can have that. But what you're essentially saying, firstly, that you have a large unemployment problem in India already.
Yes.
Secondly, you're saying that people who are looking for other opportunities should no longer dream about it and somehow just make do with what they have. Thirdly, I think what you're essentially saying is that if there is in America a decision of this kind, then India should simply lump it. I think that there are all kinds of world bodies, including the World Trade Organization, which would have something to say about that.
Okay. Now, there are fundamental questions beyond this. The fundamental questions go beyond into how do we solve the dichotomy of us wanting to do business with the Americans, of us wanting Apple to come in on preferential terms to make it India and create jobs here, of us wanting to have access to the US markets, and for them wanting access to us, both for our large market size, our strategic interests as their strategic interests, and at the same time deal with what is happening on the ground with Indians, with us, with citizens, which any government's priority should be putting their citizens first. I'm going to come and answer those 2 questions and open up more calls after this. But once again, listen in to what Aravinda Pillalamarri, Suhasini, I'm just coming to you, to what she was narrating to an audience. It's very, very telling, it's very personal, and it's very deep. Listen in.
So one day, as I was taking my morning walk, I was stopped by the Bel Air Police and asked what I was doing. I replied that I was just walking. The officer asked where I lived. As I was only a short distance from my home, I pointed towards it. When he asked my name, I asked why I was being questioned, and he said that someone had called the police. Walking while brown, I asked. He said, no, nothing like that. Someone might have been concerned that I was lost. I asked for his card, which he gave me, and I reassured him that I was not lost. I also said, I respect that you are doing your duty, and we really appreciate the work the police department does. We hear about it at town meeting. I don't have a problem giving you my name, but I would like to know what my civil rights are in this situation. A supervisor arrived and asked me what was happening. I related what happened up to that point, reassured him that I was not lost, and asked if I was free to go. He said, no, because you are under criminal investigation. I was very surprised by this. I asked for his card. He said, after you show me your ID. As I had just come out for a walk, I had not carried my ID with me. Why don't you have ID, he asked. Are you here illegally? I again asked for his card. He said, after you give me your name. At this point, I gave my name and date of birth, and after they looked it up in their system, they allowed me to go. He did not give me his card, and I did not ask again.
All right, so Asni, before I bring you back in, Ambassador Mukherjee, on the one hand, you have Donald Trump saying all good things about India and his Prime Minister, and there are several Americans from the Indian community there who backed him very, very aggressively during the polling campaign when it seemed almost ludicrous that anybody was backing him at that point of time. How do we solve that dichotomy, sir? How does the government stand up for the rights of Indians who seek to work, who seek to travel, who are NRIs, who are OICs, but also continue with ties with the world's only superpower?
Look, this is not a zero-sum kind of game. If in any country, whether it's America or any other country, and we've had these situations in the past from Idi Amin's Uganda to other countries where Indians have been targeted in isolated cases or a series of cases now. The point is the Indian government can take up a thing politically or diplomatically, as it has in many, many instances, provided it affects Indian citizens, and much more so if there is a kind of a pogrom against Indian citizens in general.
Let's not jump to that
specifically.
conclusion. That's not happening yet.
So that's not happening. That's not happening. So let's not overreact. I mean, we'll have to see how it goes. America, you know, this whole Trump phenomenon has created a kind of situation, especially among liberal opinion around the world, that is seeming to overnight demonize the whole of America itself.
Yeah, which is of course unfair
so we'll
for the large majority of Americans who didn't vote for him. Okay, now one caller quickly before I go back to Swasni Haidar. Raghu Kumar calling us from Bengaluru. Go ahead.
Hello.
Mr. Kumar, go ahead, sir. We can hear you.
I think this decision by the Trump government against foreigners coming into the country is something fundamentally wrong.
Okay.
And especially this racist type of policies they're following is detrimental to their own interests in the days to come.
Okay, we are hoping some voices like these are being heard, sir, back in Washington. So, Asni Haidar, you wanted to make a point. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you were asking about the fact that, you know, the economic consequences maybe of keeping your best qualified over here. I just wanted to put that figure out there that annually India gets between $65 to $70 billion of remittances from Indians worldwide. That is equal nearly to our entire bilateral trade with the US. So I think we have to remember that the principle of stopping Indians from coming into the US because of an American versus non-American bias is going to affect India very badly. It's not just about what is an American domestic policy. It is about an American domestic policy that hurts Indians where it cuts the deepest, which is at their stomachs and their wages. So I don't think we can behave as if this is something that's going on inside the US, which Indians for the moment are not on any list, so should not worry about.
Okay, legitimate point. There is going to have serious economic consequences, and when it has serious economic consequences, we can preach to the choir, sir, and tell the Americans that you need us, you need our skills. A lot of them know that, we know that, certainly the business leaders know it. Sundar Pichai is not just one lone example. The CEO of several Fortune 500 companies are Indian Americans, or at least Americans of Indian descent. If logic doesn't make sense, sir, what economic leverage can we possibly have, Shashank Mukherjee?
Certainly. Look, for instance, let's take the case which is exercising everybody's mind, the H-1B visas. 60% of our IT exports, which is among our biggest exports, which also, in fact, more than simply money, it has changed the image of India abroad. The American market is key. And restrictions on the H-1B visas, or enlarging the, or putting conditions on them, such as even the levels of wages,
are very high,
that have to be made very high. So again, as a kind of a non-tariff barrier to H-1B visas, certainly will affect our IT exports. There I do think, and I've always felt that there is a silver lining. For a very, very long time indeed, we have been, you know, Indians have been very encouraged at the very high level of our IT exports as the software, one of the software giants of the world. The fact is that most of our IT exports, most of our information technology industry is really back office work.
Yes.
It's what somebody disparagingly called it techno-coolie work.
Yes.
So if it forces and the talent is obviously
to
there
become
because
R&D and innovative, then that's a good thing.
If
So we
it
move away
innovates.
from
And
cost.
the second important point is, don't forget, it is not out of charity that American businesses are recruiting in IT professionals. They will continue to pressurize their government to hire Indian professionals.
The phone lines are ringing,
so we just have to see how it goes.
Let me open a few people. Mr. Zaidi calling us from Lucknow. Prakash is calling us also. Mr. Zaidi, you go first, sir. Mr. Zaidi, if you can hear us, sir, go ahead.
I'm speaking from Lucknow.
Go ahead, Mr. Zaidi. We can hear you, sir. Go ahead. Okay, so we're going to try to patch that connection line with you once again. Prakash, if you can hear me, go ahead.
Hello.
Prakash, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Prakash, if you can hear me, go ahead, please. Okay, I'm pretty both those lines are not connected. We'll just come back to these two gentlemen if they can call us back. Swasni Haider, on fundamentals, again, the logic of economics is being lost in the logic of nationalism here. All those narratives are different ones. We know they exist. But what can a government in India do about it? Can we do anything?
Well, certainly India will be only one of many countries to try and put some kind of pressure on the US to reconsider these policies. Remember, this is only one of a number of executive orders or a number of policies Mr. Trump is signing or is intending to sign. The ban on 6 nations, according to the Trump government itself, could be extended to other countries as well. The second part of it is really that that these will affect not just Indians who are going to the US directly from India, but Indian Americans from other countries as well. Some of the laws, for example, part of the executive order is that dual nationality citizens, so, if a British citizen from one of these countries also is going to the US, will be kept out. The second thing he signed today is no privacy for non-Americans, an order that essentially waives your rights if you are a non-American inside the US today in terms of privacy issues. So we don't know where this is headed, and I think if India is amongst the first 5 countries that Mr. Trump reached out to, it must have also some equivalent leverage over the US government when it comes to looking at valid concerns.
Well, this has been a somber conversation.
As I said, the arrest of a businessman today in the US must be...
Yeah, it's been a somber conversation. I'm out of time. And each of these arrests, as they happen, of course, there's some practical advice to follow, which we started off at the beginning of this show on. But there's a larger question, which we can't run away from. We won't be able to run away from it for at least several years. And let's face it, at some point of time, it will have to be challenged. It just can't be a television discussion. We leave it there. Swasni Haider, Ambassador Mukherjee, thank you for joining us and starting this discourse here in India. I'll slip into a short break. On the other side, it's our Sunday